Hey everyone, welcome to your next Sturken and Cartwright lecture. I hope you had a good fall break and you were able to do something to reinvigorate yourselves and take a little time to rest, hopefully get some away time from work and school. You had your second quiz and I haven't finished grading all of them yet, but I look forward to doing that. Just so everyone knows, there'll be one more quiz this semester during the regular meeting times of the semester, and then you'll have a final test during finals week. So, and just so everyone knows, any questions that show up in the quiz or the last quiz and the final could come from either my lectures or the videos that I've asked you to watch on Art 21 or the related articles and interviews related to the Art 21 videos, or any of the readings from your Williams textbook, How to Write About Contemporary Art, or anything else that I've covered in this course thus far. So I will give you a study guide for the final, however, which should help you narrow things down. Okay, so this next lecture is a relatively short one. I only have really 2, 3, 4 images to show you, but I'm going to show you 2 of those images twice just to kind of dig into the idea of appropriation of imagery. And I have talked about this in some of my other classes in Design Foundation specifically, so maybe some of you may recall that conversation around the abstraction assignment with Fruit and Andy Warhol using appropriation as a methodology for creating his artwork in the 60s, specifically appropriating other people's work, either photographic images or prints to call his own and make his own prints from, or paintings for that matter. Most famously, as you've seen in this class, or maybe not in this class, but in photography, would be the Campbell's soup can by Andy Warhol. But in this class, so far, we've really been discussing just the negotiated process of reading, viewing, and consuming imagery. But the negotiation over the meaning of images also takes the form of making, which I'm sure most of you are most interested in as artists. If you're BFA or Bachelor of Science art, you like to make things. So what's really fascinating right now is we live in an era where more people, and I hope you agree with me with this comment, more people than ever have access to the tools that you need for image in media production. So just think of your phones really as sort of a one-stop shop for and or toolkit for everything you need to do, from making videos to photographs to posting online to social media to blogs to websites, you name it. You really have access to do all of that, not including music, of course, and other things. Appropriation is one technique through which old images and texts are given new meaning. So just to give you the term textbook definition, appropriation is traditionally defined as taking something for oneself without consent. So the idea of literally taking something without consent from those who you are taking it, which on the surface may sound like it's negative, but in fact, I want to show you an example of appropriation, or in more specifically, a reappropriation that's done in a way as a form of protest. I'll show you actually three examples of that. And when I say protest, I mean protest from the standpoint of people who are either or have been marginalized, or who are speaking out against what would be considered the mainstream or the prevailing cultural norms of the time. Another type of appropriation some of you may have heard of in the past is called cultural appropriation. And what that is the process of borrowing and changing the meaning of cultural products, slogans, images, or even elements of fashion. Again, on the surface, cultural appropriation can seem like it's a negative thing. However, it depends within the context that the cultural appropriation is being used before we can really pass any sort of judgment. And again, I'll show you examples of where one would argue that the cultural appropriation is actually significant and working in a net positive. Again, this is arguable, but I think from the standpoint that I'm presenting it, hopefully you'll understand that. So the first image that I want to show you is an example of what I would consider cultural reappropriation. And artists seeking to oppose the dominant ideology have used cultural appropriation quite effectively. So this is one of my favorite examples of cultural appropriation. It's a 1942 photograph by the photographer Gordon Parks titled American Gothic, Washington, D.C. And it makes an intertextual statement by referring to Grant Wood's American Gothic, which is a well-known 1930 painting that depicts a white American man and woman holding a pitchfork before a classic wooden farmhouse. Gordon Parks, by the way, for those of you that don't know, was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and if you ever drive through St. Paul on the east side, there's actually Gordon Parks High School right off of University Avenue. Parks' photograph is really a kind of a bitter commentary on the discrepancy between the meanings of the two works. So his image and then the initial American Gothic by Grant Wood. The house that's in the backdrop in the original painting is replaced by an American flag in his photograph, and the white couple holding a pitchfork is replaced by a single black woman named Ella Watson holding a mop and a broom. So let me show you an example of the original Grant Wood American Gothic from 1930. It's oil on beaverboard panel, about 78 by 65 centimeters. So the codes of Puritan family ethics, especially at that time in the United States, connoted in the original painting, the iconography suggests that hard work would lead you to the proud ownership of a home, which was at that time and still to this day seemingly a badge of American belonging, as in you belong to the system in which you were born and raised in. By playing off the codes of the original American Gothic using a strategy that Henry Louis Gates has called intertextual irony, Parks points to the fact that not all Americans are interpolated by the painting's mythic image of American values. As Stephen Beale writes, Parks ensures that the normative whiteness of the now iconic American Gothic did not go unrecognized and unchallenged. In this first image, as in most Euro-American representations, whiteness is the unmarked category, defined as the norm and hence unremarkable. And just to make a brief statement about this, I think the majority of people seeing this painting who come from a Caucasian Eurocentric background wouldn't think anything out of the ordinary in this painting, other than the fact that it's old and it represents a time period in the United States that is essentially 100 years ago now. However, the remake of this painting, or the photograph, the cultural appropriation by Gordon Parks, heightens the meaning of the appropriation through its implied comparison. So if we go back to Parks' image, his American Gothic marks race and in the process makes the viewer think back on the whiteness of the original painting, thus creating a critical comparison between the two. Another example of appropriation, and cultural appropriation for that matter, was done between 1988 and 1995 by the artist Grand Fury. And Grand Fury produced posters and performances, installations, and videos alerting people to the fact that about AIDS and HIV that public health officials refused to publicize at that time. Specifically in the 80s, there was almost a cone of silence around a very real and very public issue, but due to the fact of some political leanings, it was not publicized or discussed much. One of their posters, one of Grand Fury's posters, advertised a 1988 demonstration, which was called a kiss-in, intended to publicly dispel the myth that kissing transmits the AIDS virus. At that point, there were all sorts of rumors that were rampant, spreading through every corner of the country, saying that you could catch AIDS by someone sneezing on you, to kissing, to all sorts of things. The phrase "read my lips," which refers to the poster's image of two women about to kiss, is appropriated from a then much discussed slogan in President George H.W. Bush's presidential campaign, which was "read my lips, no new taxes." And that slogan actually helped him propel him to president. This, by the way, is not the Bush that was president when many of you were born, but this is the elder Bush, or George W. Bush's father. In lifting the widely recognized phrase and then placing it with images showing men kissing men and women kissing women, Grand Fury recoded that phrase. The appropriation gave the poster a biting political humor, making it both a playful twist of words and an accusation against a president who was overtly homophobic and denied the seriousness of the AIDS epidemic with tragic consequences. AIDS activists, especially at that time in the 80s and early 90s, used the street as their platform. And in many ways, the street became a way for artists to voice their displeasure, to change minds, and to work through ideas. The last image I'm going to show you, and just as a trigger warning, is a silhouette of a person that was being tortured. And this happened during the Second Iraq War during 2004. It's not detailed. It's actually very much stylized and appropriated. But I'll just want to warn people about that. So this is the image. It's called Iraq, and it's a poster by Copper Green, who's an artist from 2004. In the early protests against the U.S.-led war in Iraq, the street was an important political site, as it continues to be today. In 2004, an anonymous artist collective in New York, going by the name Copper Green, made posters in which they appropriated a popular iPod advertising campaign to comment on revelations of torture committed by U.S. soldiers at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Copper Green, which took its name from the Pentagon code named for detainee operations in Iraq, created a new set of meanings by combining the graphic style of the iPod ad campaign with leaked photographs then in wide media circulation revealing torture conducted by personnel of the U.S. Army and the CIA upon Iraqi prisoners inside Abu Ghraib, the Baghdad Central Prison. In this case, the iPod graphic of a person wearing earbuds was combined with a photograph of a man standing hooded on a box with electrical wires attached to his hands, and the slogan, iPod, 10,000 songs in your pocket, was replaced with the tagline, Iraq, 10,000 volts in your pocket, guilty or innocent. In placing these posters near and even within actual iPod ads, Copper Green succeeded in subtly getting pedestrians to do double takes in the city. The combination critiqued not only the use of torture in military prisons, but also the dominance of individualized consumer media culture. The white wires of the iPod advertising campaign became the electric wires of torture, critiquing the way in which iPod culture, with headphones that shut us off from surrounding environments, reflects an insular consumer culture, one that allowed U.S. citizens to disavow the war and their complicity in it. Copper Green's campaign affirms that the street remains a site of contested intents and meanings. So, these are just, again, three examples of appropriation, and one specific example of reappropriation. So again, just thinking through the idea of appropriating imagery as a way of artists being able to make or recode ideas is really, really important to understand within a historical timeline. All right, hope this all made sense to you, and I've got your next reading up for this week, and we will keep on continuing until our very next quiz, which will be in 3 weeks from now. Okay, hope you're all well. Talk to you soon.